Good morning. Namaste, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my Advent calendar. It's lovely to have you to be a part of this series. And for today's inspiration, I thought I would focus on the closing of this first decan of Sagittarius and use the Eight of Wands as a significator. The Eight of Wands as a card of focus, as a card of messages being delivered. There is an intensity to this card, but I think it's so brilliant how the Knight of Wands is this spiritual energy, potentially spiritual, that can gather courage and stamina and energy to bring us into the density of this season. It's not an easy card to wrap your head around, Eight of Wands. And by looking at its threads, you can begin to understand, and even the aspect of this being a double Mercury card, in that it is an 8 on the Tree of Life in the Sephira of Hod, and also it is 8 by a Mercury by Decan. So when I think of this card, I'm also reminded of Mercury the healer and the magician as healer, or you as this self-empowered soul choosing your right action. I want to encourage everyone to take more of a bigger picture of this card. It looks so simple, and yet its layers are very complex. And so let's this morning receive a message from this card, the Eight of Pentacles. Good morning to Kaylee Rose. Namaste. I introduced 3 working horse decks yesterday, and I'm going to use one of them for the reading today. Look at this beautiful card on the bottom of the deck. And isn't that interesting, right? As the significator for Sagittarius, just wanting to be there, wanting to show up for us this morning. I'm on the west coast of British Columbia in Canada, and it is just after 6 a.m. All right, I'm actually going to look for, hi Jen, welcome to Sharon as well too. I'm actually going to look for the 8 of Wands and then build the reading around that. This is one of the gorgeous cards I was talking about yesterday. Okay. So this is actually a very heavy deck to hold in one hand. So it's quite near the top of the pile, and the World card is on one side, and the Ten of Pentacles is on the other side. So this is a really heavy reading in Mercury. So let's go 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll leave the others in position in case we need them. So nice to see some of you from the other side of the world. Saskia's here as well too, and Helen, welcome, welcome. So I was talking about focus, and I just think it's amazing. We have a winged creature here. I was talking about Mercury, and then this card shows up. So 10 of Pentacles is a card that is loaded through Golden Dawn correspondences with Mercury. Mercury by Decan. And it is in the sign of Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury. So, and if you know the Thoth correspondences, this is a really powerful deck in that way. So just me focusing on Mercury and these two sort of connections to Mercury is very powerful. But I'm interested in this combination of cards on the left side. We have the 4 of Pentacles and the World. And both of these cards seem to represent keep your feet on the ground kind of energy. When I think of the 4 of Pentacles, I think of 4 legs of a chair, 4 legs of a table, 4 wheels of a car, the 4 corners of a building. And while things are always changing, with the World card here next to a card that can invite rapid shifts of energy, I really feel that card says to be mindful of your grounding energy. So what can you do in this moment? Because these are daily readings. So these are moment readings to be very present with and to remind yourself of. So in this day, wherever you are, what time of day, what can you do to help ground a little bit more to carry you through the remainder of this day? Focusing on your exhale breath, making sure that you actually land when you arrive places. The World card would say yes to, would be a message of saying yes to allowing something to come to its natural completion. So if you're like me early in the day, really pay attention to things that are wanting to maybe unexpectedly wind up. And that's also powerful because on either side of the 8 of Wands, we have 2 cards of closure. 2 cards of closure of things in this mundane world. And if you are towards the end of your day, this is something you might want to take into your prayers, into your sleeps, into your intentions to enter into your dream world. Now, what is the Strength card doing here? And how does the Strength card support or hinder this energy? Well, it tells me that we may be tempted to resist. And that from the outside, there are excuses, reasons, because it's easier, right? Change is not always easy. But there's something deep within your belly, deep within your soul, that has an inner knowing that knows and recognizes this natural completion. And part of me wants to say that this natural completion has been unfolding. It has been happening. So allow it to complete its course. And I can think of one in my life, and I'm sort of hanging on. And I feel like this Eight of Wands energy, choosing this Eight of Wands energy, is also acknowledging, let's cut the cord. Let's cut the cord. It is time. And if you are earlier in your process, I always remind clients that this is a time to honor all the good things. Be grateful for what you have as you are releasing it. Both of the cards on the outside, the Four of Pentacles and the Eight Major Arcana, are strong cards. They hold you. They hold space for you. So take from this message a sense of courage. That everything will be more than okay. And also think about the energy of Mercury and how you might receive Mercury's medicine on this day as well too. Now the moon goes from Sag into Capricorn at some point. Well, today for me. And this will be an interesting few readings because my moon is in Capricorn, and I always do pay more attention to the days, the readings in that. So take from that what resonates, leave the rest, and know that it comes from my heart. I decided today to share with you some, it is tarot adjacent, and these are 3 books that one of the things I do love is books. Beautiful, beautiful books. And if you have been following my Tarot de Marseille series, you've seen this one a lot recently. This beautiful book by Laetitia Barbier has inspired and guided quite late in the journey. I haven't had it for very long. My love of the history of tarot. I want to get into the card pages here. It is a large, heavy picture book full of collections of art as well as cards through the ages. And the writings, the reflections on the cards are beautiful. And it hasn't really been the text. I mean, the text is beautiful. It hasn't been the text of this book that has created major aha moments, but more it's been reading this as a secondary resource and having all of these decks in hand because I have them in a book. And I want you to look at this death embroidery. It's simply beautiful. I've never seen an embroidery before, and this one just like, wow, wowza. And so there are also lots of pieces of art that are shared in discussion with the cards themselves. And there I have other books as well that do this, like the Marseille reference from J.M. David. I have the PDF, which also has the pictures in color, so I can expand and zoom in on them. But it is so nice to have paper in hand. I just love hardcover books. And wow, just wow, wow, wow. Now, this is one that I don't pull out very often. And yet, when I do feel the need to use the Deviant Moon in a reading, I will reach for this book. And again, this is large, it is heavy, it has glossy pages. And one of the beautiful things about this book is that it tells Patrick Valenza's backstory for all of the cards, and it really helps you to understand where the creator is coming from. And while I have had this deck for many, many years, it's one that little details continue to come forward for me. It's not one of my favorite, all-time decks by any means, but I really think it has a place in the tarot world. And here's a page. So this is Knight of Swords, and it's just so brilliant. I have a small book, paperback book, the one that Stephanie Pui Moon Law did for the large arcana for Shadowscapes Tarot. And she, in her book, you see this as well too. You see the development of each of the cards and the choices that the creator made. And so I really appreciate, I love books. I love books. And my kids were teasing me yesterday as I was putting stuff away, decorating for Christmas. And I said, I need more bookshelves. And my daughter says, Mom, don't you think it's time to have a book sale? And I'm going, no. Absolutely not. I did share this one once on my channel. Now, I can't remember how this came to be, but I remember unpacking it when it arrived in the post and being absolutely gobsmacked. Good morning, Aria. At how stunning this book is. Now, this is larger width and height. It's not quite as thick, but what this book does have is a wonderful overview. It's short, but it's comprehensive. It covers a lot of the background information for the history of tarot in full color pictures. There's your one JJ Swiss, and the major influences on tarot, and it's well written, and it has. We'll get to the. Of course, there's the Pamela Coleman, the Arthur Waite comparisons to the Solobusco, and then the Thoth Tarot. So some references to playing cards. And this goes all the way through and includes some more contemporary. Some of you wouldn't include this deck as contemporary, but major influencers in the world of tarot. And one of my first decks is on the cover. Hello, Intuitive Kingdom. Welcome. And all these backstories, I really appreciate. And some of these, of course, if I don't have the decks too, it's all the more interesting. What I was going to say is my first deck is in here as well too. Well, my first working deck, my first workhorse deck, which is the Robin Wood. So yeah, so my favorite things, large coffee table picture books that wander through things I love. Once upon a time, I had probably a whole shelf full of coffee table books, but over the years they have disappeared with various moves because you can't keep them as you move. I just want to remind you, because there were very few comments yesterday, so I want to make a comment on comments, that there is, I said yesterday how important these connections are to me, and was focusing on our connection as a community in the reading. And me doing giveaways during this series is just my way of saying thank you to all of you. And you, what do I want to say? Even if you don't want to enter the draw, I really appreciate your comments. It means a lot to me. And so thank you for that. And if you do want to enter the draw, the decks that I'm giving away on Friday are listed below, and you'll have a choice of one of those, and postage is included if you are in North America. And I'm going to be giving away a reading if you are not in North America. And that draw will also be included in the grand prize, which will be a gift box that includes several tarots and oracles. So you can enter once a day by commenting below. Okay, so let's go to my daily tarot tip. And this one was inspired by a previous video. I've been watching old videos, and there's some good stuff back there. And some of the videos just have too many things in them, so I'm going to extract a few goodies from that. So one of the questions was, why have multiple copies of a deck? Because that seems too much consumerism. It seems excessive. And so I want to respond to that question. And I think part of this response is also in my advice to many tarot students, that to be working with one deck for an extended period of time, not to fall into that massive consumerism thing where you need a library of 100+ decks. It's too confusing. You can't learn that. You can't work with that many decks all at the same time. So I think one of the reasons I have multiple copies of some decks is it's part of my study. And this beautiful deck, which I would highly recommend for beginner students, has, in the major arcana, there are legends that are named up on the top of the card. And you'll see in just a moment. Let me flip through a few cards. This is a High Priestess card. And the paintings are deluxe. Good morning, Sarah Noon. They're so deluxe. Beautiful oil paintings with so much detail. These cards, if they were printed on 5x7 cards, would be so luxurious. And so the legend in this book, so this is another good thing about this deck, and this is not the point of today's conversation, but is woven in to the meaning of the cards. And there are only 22 of them. This is not one of those decks that has 56 different fairy tales or legends to learn. There's only 22 of them, which still is a lot. But my point here is that I needed to have 2 copies of this deck. One, I absolutely love my trimmed copy. It is so sweet. And I know the lighting is kind of weird this morning, sorry, because it's dark still. It's so brilliant to hold in hand, and yet sometimes for various reasons I forget the name of the legend, or there's a reason to have the full size cards, or I simply want large cards. And I think what I was alluding to at the beginning is sometimes it's better to have 2 copies of one deck than to have 2 different decks, especially if you're really wanting to get to know a deck. And another one that comes to mind is the AlcheMystical Tarot by Eden Gallanter. I did a deep dive with that deck a couple of times, and I trimmed one copy, but it's a really hard deck to get to know. I'm sorry I don't have it on the table here as an example. And I needed to have that reference, but I wanted to train myself to memorize what those cards were, and there was no way I was going to do it if I didn't cut the borders off. So there's something about using a deck as a study deck, having a trimmed copy, having an uncut copy, that's been really useful for me. As a yogi, I found a connection to Kim Krans many years ago, and I think it was a couple years ago, I did a few videos, and I called them Color With Me. And I have this one copy of The Wild Unknown that I began to personalize and to color. And it was very meditative because it made me think about everything that I knew about color, everything that I knew about the energy of the cards. And I'm just I want to do a few more, actually. I really do. And so naturally I have other copies of this deck. I have one that I use for reading with the public, which is not marked up. And okay, this is kind of embarrassing. I also have a first edition, which one of you lovely souls, it was Amy, gifted to me. And that is beautiful because some of the majors are different and the backs are different. And wait for this. I also have the mini version, and I want to share with you why all these cards here are in elastic bands. So I did this major. So I did a course this summer. It was called Mastering Large Tarot Spreads. And one of the tarot spreads that we did was an astrological spread. And so these are my cards for Aries season, which hasn't happened yet. It was kind of like a year ahead kind of reading. Pisces. Let's go to, let's find the Temperance card. And it seems like a long time to keep these cards bundled up, and I do have photographs, but there's something about keeping cards in, like looking at the actual cards, and I could be pulling them out later, but okay, so I'm sorry, I'm looking for the Temperance card. I may unwrap these. So another reason to have multiple copies is to have a travel copy, but also when you are using two decks in a reading, it is way easier if you have little cards. Yeah, so okay. So here is my Temperance reading, and I would need to go back and look at the video to see the order of the cards. But I have this in hand, and I have all these little cards here. So this is the Centennial Waite Smith, which of course I have a larger version of that I use for teaching, among other things. And I have this little deck, and I really like this idea of using one deck for the significators. So even if you were doing a year ahead reading and you had different markers for the months, I don't know what you would use, but it's so cool to have. There's so much you can do with little tiny cards, and maybe that's a separate video, all the things you can do with little cards. I see Sarah has a question. How do you discern what decks will work for you? I'm drawn to the more independent decks as part of the draw of tarot is the artwork, as well as aids to journaling, shadow. They're an expensive guess. Okay, so how am I drawn to cards? Really, this is a good question, and it's personal. So Sarah, this has been a 25 plus year journey for me with the tarot, and the sheer beauty of artwork, like I was showing you in the major arcana of the Llewellyn, it's absolutely stunning. So there's something about the oils on canvas, the watercolors on the water paper. I have a lot of watercolor decks. I love art. And so when a deck is able to capture the tarot in a beautiful piece of art, I'm certainly attracted to it. I'll show you lots of favorite decks over the course of this series. And so here's the piece, Sarah. I have been studying hard for a long time, and there are layers of history and meaning and esotericism that have become important to me. So one of the things I'm not attracted to is when a deck creator disregards the shoulders that we all stand upon in the history of tarot. Good night, Jen. Thank you so much for joining us. I miss you too. So yeah, it's a combination of the approach to the cards as well as the beauty of the art. That's a short answer. And Sarah, if you watch my videos over the years, you'll get a better flavor for how I select decks. Yeah. So that's a wrap for today. Thank you all so much for being here. And just a reminder that if you would like to be entered into the prize for this week and the daily draw, to please leave a comment below. And if you just want to say hi, to do that as well too. It's greatly appreciated. Have a lovely rest of your day. Take good care. Namaste.